Sahanau bhunaktu sahaviryam karavavahai tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Namaste, good morning, good evening, welcome back. Good to continue this session. So let's continue our discussion of Mundaka Upanishad. So we covered two Mundakas, Mundaka 1 and Mundaka 2. And Mundaka 2 essentially was the major teaching of the Mundaka Upanishad. I knew and I know it was not easy, but please be patient. This is what we are going to unfold through different Upanishads, and it will click for sure. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask at the end. So in the second Mundaka, we analyzed on a very high level. Of course, we talked about the Srishti Prakriya, the creation or the projection of the universe. But the key topics mainly was, one is we did a deep analysis of Brahman as existence. Sat. That is number one. Then what we did? We did a deep analysis of Brahman as Chit, consciousness. So the logical flow was like this. We said, or the Upanishad said, the fundamental reality of the universe is Brahman. Right now, we don't know what exactly it is. So we put that as X or Om. We used a variable to represent that as Om. And the Upanishad made a hypothesis that this Brahman is the cause of the entire universe. Right? Now, we came up with certain corollaries. Remember, if you remember, every effect has a cause, and the effects are nothing but cause itself in a different form. If you remove the effect from the cause, nothing remains. So if the entire universe is an existence of Brahman, how do you find Brahman from this universe? Because you do not have direct access to the Karanam Brahma, whereas you do have direct access to the Karya Prapancha. So how do you see the Karanam Brahma from the Karya Prapancha? This was the deep inquiry. So whenever you search for something, two things you need. Where exactly you need to search, if you know. Second thing is, what is the lakshana or the characteristics of the thing you are going to search? So here the scope is the entire physical universe and entire inner universe. So that is where I'm going to search Brahman. Second thing is that what exactly is the nature of the Brahman? We saw there are some four characteristics: Brahma Satya, Brahma Nitya, Brahma Swatantra, Brahma Sarvagata. So we saw that. When you apply these rules, we found that the infinite manifestations of the objects of the universe, they are not Brahman, because they don't show the characteristics of the Brahman. So what exactly is, how do you find Brahman? We found that the only thing that satisfies this definition of Brahman or the characteristics of Brahman is existence. That which gives existence to the entire objects of the universe is Brahman. So this is what we concluded. And now the question is, how do you find that existence? Because they are not directly visible to me. What is visible to me is a manifestation of that Brahman. But the Brahman, underlying Brahman, is not visible. So how do I find that? The answer is simple. The Rishi said, if everything is Brahman, you are also Brahman. So the observer or the Aham, I, is Brahman. So what exactly is the Aham I am referring here? It is the pure consciousness in me. So we said, Sat eva Brahman, Brahman is existence. And then we said Chit eva Brahman, because a consciousness is also Sat. And since consciousness is Sat, consciousness is Brahman, right? A equal to B, B equal to C, then A equal to C. And therefore, Aham, I am the consciousness. So Aham Brahma Asmi. This is what we concluded. Absolute existence is Brahman. Consciousness is also absolute existence. I am consciousness. Therefore, I am Brahman. This is what the second chapter. Detailed explanation of the second chapter. Now, the third chapter is going to talk about, the first portion of the third chapter is going to talk about some of the spiritual accessories you need to experience the truth described in the second chapter. In the second chapter, we found that Aham Brahma Asmi. Aham Brahma Asmi, how can I experience? I need certain spiritual accessories. That is topic number one. Second thing is that to see that Brahman, I need to cultivate certain disciplines. So that is topic number two. And the third topic is, what exactly is the benefit of gaining this knowledge? So these are the three topics covered in the third chapter. So let's jump into the topic one by one. So the first topic, that is what we are going to see today, which is the spiritual accessories. So the third, it should be the third chapter. I made a mistake. It is Mundaka 3, Khanda 1. The Mundaka 3, Khanda 1 is going to talk about the spiritual accessories or various discipline one need to follow for developing a conducive mind for experiencing the truth mentioned in the second chapter. What is that truth? Aham Brahma Asmi. So it's a statement. How do I feel it? How do I experience it? So for that, what preparations one need to do and what are all the accessories one need to have? Suppose you are going to climb a mountain, definitely you need to have some accessories. Suppose you are riding a bike, you need to have some accessories. Suppose you are taking a photo with a camera, you need to have some accessories. Without the accessories, usually you cannot do anything. So in the spiritual path, you need certain accessories. This is beautiful. This is important. Let's jump into that. The goal of having these accessories is to tame and keep my mind in a very conducive state. So the first topic of the Mundaka 3, Khanda 1, Mundaka 3 is spiritual accessories. It's a beautiful concept. Let's jump into the spiritual accessories. So these are the spiritual accessories one need to cultivate. The first one is, I'm going to explain each one of the six, each one of that in detail. That is what we are going to cover today. The first one is known as Tvam Pada Viveka. The Upanishad said, Aham Brahmasmi. Thou art that. Aham, you are Brahman. When the Upanishad says you are Brahman, you need to be, or I need to be very clear about what exactly Upanishad mean by the word you. Otherwise, it is a contradiction. Right? So that's topic number one. So what is the real meaning of the word I or you used in the Upanishad? Is that me as the body, mind, everything, or is that something else? So Tvam Pada Viveka, that is topic number 1. Second topic is talking about Satyam. What is Satyam? On an absolute level and on a relative level. These two. And what is the connection? What is the role of Satyam in the relative level? Because ultimately we wanted to reach the absolute level Satyam. So what is the role of Satyam in the empirical world? Very important. And from this only, the famous quote, Satyameva Jayate, came. If you really look at the motto of the country, India, Satyameva Jayate. This is from where it came from. The third one is tapas. Tapas is focused, integrated effort. That is pretty much needed. Brahmacharyam. Brahmacharyam here used in a very, not in the fullest sense. In this particular Upanishad, Brahmacharyam is used as like the sensory discipline, just like it is used in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. The fifth accessory is Sukshma Bhukti. How do you sharpen your intellect? Even the spiritual knowledge takes place in the intellectually. So you need to improve your intelligence. So that's the fifth. And finally, Acharya Upasana, your reverence towards teachers and your teaching tradition. So these are the 6 major spiritual disciplines. Obviously, the Upanishad is going to talk about the minor 2 or 3 extra, but I try to summarize as much as possible. So this is the 6th discipline the Upanishad is talking. So let's jump into each one. The first one is the interesting one, and first one is the one which we need to understand very clearly. So please pay the attention, because this is very important. This idea is very important to understand Vedanta. So look at this example, what is shown on the screen. This is going to give clarity to a lot of things in the Vedanta. This is a brilliant example. This is an example Shankaracharya often quotes. So this is a beautiful example. You can see a sun in the sky. Forget about all the symbolic meaning. Let's limit to the actual worldly sun. And imagine that there are hundreds of buckets, and each bucket has water. So imagine, this is very, very interesting. We'll take next 10 minutes and go over this example in detail. So there is only one sun. You need to understand this, right? If you have any questions or any misunderstanding of this topic, or if you disagree, just raise your hand and let's talk right now itself. So there is only one sun. How many reflected suns are there? Let's say that 100 buckets are there. 100 reflected suns are there, right? But really speaking, how many sun is there? One sun. And each sun, if you look at the bucket, you see one sun. And how the reflection comes in that bucket, it varies. For example, one bucket may have clear water. So the sun looks like exactly the sun of the sky. Let's say that another bucket has a muddy water. So it may not be as clear as the original sun. And the third bucket has like dancing water, like the water is shaken. So what do you see? You still see a sun, but what would be the characteristics of that sun? It will be dancing. And let's say that if a cloud covers the original sun, what is going to happen? All the buckets will disappear, right? Reflection will disappear. Now, let's say that if one bucket broken, the water is gone. The sun will be there in the sky. What is going to happen to the reflection? Reflection will not happen. So for you to see the reflection of the sun within the water, there are certain things that needs to be in place. One is there has to be a original sun, right? And second thing is there has to be a reflecting medium. Look at the word I'm using. There has to be an original sun. There has to be a reflecting medium. And then you can see what? A reflected sun. And that reflected sun appears to be different from the original sun, depending upon the characteristics of the reflecting medium. Am I correct or wrong? Let's say that if that reflecting medium has shaky water, the original sun is stationary, static, but the reflecting sun is going to be dancing. Right? How that dancing caused is not because of the real sun dancing, but because of the reflecting medium. Is this clear? Is this example clear? Excellent. This is a beautiful example to understand the meaning of the word I. The original sun represents the consciousness, the universal consciousness, or the Atman, or the self. We can call it as original consciousness, just like we call it as original sun, original consciousness. How many suns are there? Only one. So like that, there is only one universal consciousness. Now, the second topic we talked about was the reflecting medium. What is that reflecting medium? In this particular case, there is a bucket and there is a water. The bucket and the water put together forms the reflecting medium. If there is only one bucket without water, that is not a reflecting medium. If there is a water without the bucket, it won't stand, because the water always needs a bucket to stay. Remember, all these are beautiful connection with the other example. So in this particular case, our physical body represents the bucket, and our subtle body, which is the mind and intellect, that type of thing, represents the water. So when the body, physical body and subtle body stays together, it is capable of reflecting what? The reflection of the sun. If not, if the bucket is only there, even though the sun is there, the bucket is not capable of reflecting that sunlight. Like that, when the bucket and the water are there, the original sun can get reflected here. Obviously, how that reflection comes out is going to be depending upon the characteristics of the bucket and the water, but definitely it can reflect it. So the universal consciousness is only one. There can be billions of means the body and the mind, and in the body and the mind, what reflection it happens, that is known as ahankara, or the individual self, or the jivatma. That's it. So the jivatma, the individual self, is a reflection of the universal self, and that reflection is facilitated by the body and the mind. And there are hundreds of buckets like that. Billions of jivatmas are there, but the existence of all the jivatmas are coming from the Paramatma, which is the universal consciousness. So when the Vedanta talks about the meaning of the word I, right? When the Paramatma says what? Aham Brahma Asmi means it assumes the Jivatma in a clear bucket of water, reflecting the exact sun as it is. Then it can say that what? Aham Brahma Asmi. I am a reflection, or at least I am like the original sun. So now the question is, you need to understand this a little bit more clear. Is the reflection different from the original sun? You see a sun in the bucket of water. What exactly you are seeing? You are seeing the actual sun. You are seeing the sun only through a reflecting medium, right? That's it. The reflection do not have an existence, but the reflection appears to exist because of the original sun. So when that reflection, exactly like the original sun, it can reflect, you can say that Aham Brahma Asmi. This is one of the most fundamental principle of Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta. Advaita Vedanta tells there is only one Atman. If you think that, if you heard that there are multiple Atmans, that is wrong. There is only one Sachidananda Atma. There is only one Paramatma. There could be multiple Jivatma because Jivatma is a reflection of the Paramatma. And the Jivatma's identification with the Paramatma is the goal of every spiritual practice. And for that, for the Jivatma to reflect the Paramatma as it is, the bucket has to be strong, the water has to be clean, and the water has to be pure. Imagine if the water is muddy, even though the Paramatma is there, it won't be properly get reflected. And if the water is shaky, right, then what is going to happen? The reflection will not happen. So that is why the scriptures, especially the Bhagavad Gita, brilliantly gives us two preparatory practices. What is that? Karma Yoga. And what is the role of the Karma Yoga? To make that water in the bucket pure, free from all dirts. And what is the role of Upasana Yoga? It is to keep the water still and stable. When the water is pure and stable, it can reflect the Paramatma, and that is what it is. So that is why when you talk about Tvam, we are not talking about the bucket, we are not talking about the water, but we are talking about the pure reflection of the Paramatma. So this is very important. Otherwise, when you hear Aham Brahmasmi, I may think that this is Rajesh. If I identify myself as Rajesh, what? Or of course, on the transactional world, I may have to identify myself as Rajesh, right? But really speaking, I am beyond this Rajesh who is sitting and talking. My real nature is Atma, and that Atma equal to Aham Brahma Asmi. So this is very important. Topic number one. So reflect on this. We will review this again during the Q&A, but this is the essence of Vedanta. To enumerate this, the Upanishad gives another example. This example is very famous example. The two-bird analogy. So in the first mantra of this chapter, the Upanishads paints a beautiful picture. You might have heard of this story. Everybody quotes this example. So in this example, there is a tree, two birds sitting in the tree, and these birds are pretty much identical, and the tree has a lot of fruits. So the analogy here is the tree represents the body and mind, which is the reflecting medium, and the fruits are the products created out of the body and the mind. Understood, right? Body is the body and the mind put together is the tree. Meaning, remember the three words we used: the original consciousness, the reflecting medium, and the reflected consciousness. Right? Original consciousness is Paramatma. Reflecting consciousness is Jivatma, and the reflecting medium is the body and the mind together, put together. Now, here the tree represents the reflecting medium, which is the body and the mind put together. The fruits of the tree belongs to, meaning it is the product you create or imagine out of the body and the mind. For example, the money I create, the desire for every sense objects. That is what it is. So here one bird looking up higher, and it's not addicted to these fruits of the tree. Whereas another bird, what it is shown in the example is, it just go on and addicted and obsessed with the fruits. Some fruits it eats, it tastes better, I mean beautiful, like sweet. And some fruits, what happens? It's not so sweet. So the bird feels miserable. So that's what the life of a typical individual is. That's what the Upanishad tells. We are fascinated by the fruits around us. Obviously, the fruit is needed. Without that, you cannot live. But if you are obsessed with that fruit, you will just stay with the pleasure and pain born out of the problem because of the efforts of the body and the mind. So this is the brilliant example shown by the Upanishad. Swami Vivekananda personally was very fond of this example. So that covers the first accessory, which is the Tvam-pada Viveka. So now let's go to the second accessory. The second topic, it is Satyam. What is Satyam? The Satyam can be defined seen at the two levels. One is the Brahman or the Atman, that is the Satyam. The definition of the Satyam is Abaditam Satyam, that which cannot be negated. So let's say that if you think that atoms are the most fundamental particle, then what does that mean? It cannot depend on anything else for its existence. And we know that that's not true. Everything in this universe depends upon something else for its existence. And we had done this analysis, and per the vision of Advaita Vedanta, Brahman or the absolute reality or the Satchidananda Atma, that is the only Satyam. Everything else has relative. The absolute is only Brahman, everything else is relative. That is where you could see this quote about the truth. So what you can do is, meaning this absolute reality, when you write, you can put it everything as capital letter, other one you can put it as small letter, whatever way, but these two are different. Satyam Jnanam Anandam Brahma, that is the characteristics of Brahma. Absolute level, that is truth. Everything else has only relative existence. It cannot be negated at any period of time. That is the only truth. Everything else in the universe can be negated. And that is what Swami Vivekananda brilliantly said. Truth can be stated in 1,000 different ways, yet each one can be true. Right? So hundreds of ways you can describe Brahman, the reality, but there is only one Brahman. So if you take Vishnu Sahasranama, you see thousands of ways to describing that Brahman, but all those description is pointing to the same fact. And then Mahatma Gandhiji, who was considered as an embodiment of truth in the modern world, he said, there is no truth higher than, there is no God higher than truth. Why? Because truth is Brahman, the reality. A lot of people think this at the empirical level, but what he meant is the absolute level. Now, then on the worldly level, this is what you commonly mean by truth. Truth means honesty, a discipline you follow, right? And that is what a discipline you follow in the empirical world. Speak truth, do truth, right? That is another value. So the Upanishad brilliantly tells what? The absolute truth. For if you want to reach the absolute truth, right now you have to follow the empirical truth. You cannot lie every time and expect that one day you will reach the truth. Right? That's very important. So that means there's a lot of quotes on this particular thing. And the Bhagavad Gita also tells, right, how to practice this truth. Priyam, Hitam, all those definitions are coming. So Satyam, very important. It's an important accessories one needs to have. I really love what Mark Twain talked about the truth, the empirical truth. If you tell the truth, you don't need to remember anything. You don't need to worry. Otherwise, what happens? I need to tell what did I talk to A, then what did I talk to B, what did I talk to C? All these things will be a problem. This is very important. This is the empirical level. What is Satyam? So we talked about two spiritual accessories. there is, oh, I forgot to tell. This is what is popularly, when the Upanishad was talking about this verse, the Upanishads talked about Satyameva Jayate. Only truth triumphs. The 6th verse of the Mundaka Upanishad, 3rd chapter. Satyam Eva Jayate. This is very famous. Okay, let's move to the next topic. Tapas. What is tapas? Whenever you say tapas, the image that comes to your mind is what? Some sage staying in the middle of a fire, or some sage hanging down from a tree. Those are the imageries that comes to our mind. So Shankaracharya beautifully describes tapas. He tells manaschaischa indriyascha aikagrim manas. It's an integrated effort. Your body, your mind, your senses, your intellect, everything is working together for a common cause or for a higher cause. Let me give a simple worldly example. Let's say that you're writing an exam, you're taking a GRE test, or you're taking a PMP test, you're writing a certification. What do? Your body, your senses, your body will be sitting in a room when you're studying. Your senses will be completely focused on the study material. You try to keep your mind there. You try to keep your intellect there. When the body, mind, senses work together for a common cause, that is known as tapas. So the beautiful Rathakalpana of the Katha Upanishad is basically this, right? So the sense organs are considered like 5 horses. The reins is considered as the mind. The charioteer is considered as intellect, and the master of the Ratha is considered as the master. So when the charioteer holds the reins and drive the horses, and the Ratha itself is the body. When the body, the Ratha, the horses, the reins, and the charioteer are functioning with a common goal, the master will reach the destination. So this tapas, the skill of tapas, is very important to reach your spiritual goal. Forget the spiritual goal. Any worldly goal. If you really want to succeed, this tapas is needed. Whether at work or whether at personal level, everywhere in the life, this tapas is very important. So, tapas. You can see this in every part of the scripture. Bhagavad Gita, you see this in the 17th chapter. Yajna dana tapas karma. Patanjali Yoga Sutra, in the Kriya Yoga, tapas is one of the key disciplines. Everywhere tapas is there. So please remove the idea of a sage sitting and closing the eyes. That is a symbolic representation. Without tapas, nobody can achieve anything. And tapas is an important spiritual discipline one need to follow. So, Tvam Pada Viveka, remember the Satyam. Satyam, there are 2 levels. One is the absolute level. The other one is the empirical level. And following Satyam at the empirical level is mandatory to reach the absolute level. And then the third one is Tapa. Tapas is the union of Indriya, meaning sense organs, and the mind. Mind and the body and the intellect. The next one is Brahmacharya. The literal word or the larger word meaning of the Brahmacharya, it comes from 2 words, right? One is Brahma. The word Brahman can mean several things. Brahman is what? Absolute reality or the truth of the universe. Charya means following. So you follow a lifestyle. You follow a lifestyle which is conducive to reach that ultimate destination of the life. That is brahmacharya. So to do that, what? You need to follow, you need to restrain your sense organs. Because let's say that I have an exam tomorrow, but my mind is going after, I need to study today. If my mind is going after the movies or the games or the vacation, I cannot focus. So this brahmacharya, restraint of the sense organs, is very important. And in this particular Upanishad, it is highlighted the restrainment of what? One's blind attachment to the other sex. So that's from where this derived meaning of brahmacharya came in, right? So if you are too much addicted to the other opposite sex, that is an easy path of mental dissipation. Obviously, meaning it's not that you don't need to engage with the other person, but it has to be disciplined. You cannot overindulge. Overindulgence is not going to help you in any way. Meaning Patanjali Yoga Sutra also talks about that. Another literal word meaning of brahmacharya means when you take your 4 ashramas of life, 4 stages of life. The first stage is known as brahmacharya. Brahmacharya, Brahman there means, the word Brahma literally means absolute reality, Brahman. It can means also Vedas, right? Vedas means knowledge. So if you are dedicated to knowledge seeking, that is also known as brahmacharya. That is why that educational time is known as brahmacharya. Brahmacharyam, grihasthashramam, vanaprastham, sannyasam. So according to the original Vedic lifestyle, the first 12 years or meaning 12 years of from 6 or 5 or 6 years is dedicated for education. And that is brahmacharya, because Brahman means Veda. Charya means a lifestyle connecting with that, to seek that. So if you follow a lifestyle for knowledge seeking, that is also brahmacharya. If you follow a lifestyle to seek the higher reality, the Brahman, that is also brahmacharya. And this is very important. But in this particular Upanishad, it is mainly talk about the restrainment of the sense organs. So brahmacharya, that is the 4th one. Let's go to the 5th one. Sukshma buddhi. Sukshma buddhi means sharp intellect. You need to develop your intellect. When you study Vedanta, Vedanta is very logical. So better just try to understand it, because spiritual knowledge also requires understanding. So everybody has that intellect. So just sharpen your intellect, and this buddhi is important. Here the whole idea is, don't try to blindly believe, try to understand in a step-by-step manner. Because if you really look at the 2nd chapter, it's brilliantly, it is step-by-step derivation, step-by-step unfoldment of the truth. So don't just blindly believe, follow that. Follow your intellect. Never ever in Vedanta you are asked to believe something blindly. So that is Sukshma Buddhi. And the last one is Acharya Upasana. Acharya Upasana means reverence for the teachers and the teaching tradition. So symbolically, it is shown as like you prostrate in front of a teacher, but it is your respect and faith and reverence for the teacher. Because the good example in the modern times is, look at the electricity. So the electricity is generated at the power plant, but at home, how do you get? It is through that cable, right? Through that cable, you get that electricity. And Guru is like that cable, because it is the Guru that brings the teaching about the Brahman to me. So if that Guru Parampara is broken, what happens? That knowledge doesn't reach me. So that's why we typically pray, right? We believe that this teaching tradition has started from the Lord itself. So that's why Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara. So we salute that teaching tradition and we respect and revere them. So in this particular example, I was just showing the way we studied, meaning at least I studied. You can see like Shankaracharya, we follow Shankara's commentary very much. And there was a great master, Swami Tapovan, and we cannot forget Swami Shivananda also. The teaching tradition came to them, and from there only Swami Chinmayananda was produced or made. It is through Swami Chinmayananda the Vedanta has spread, especially into the English-speaking population or the educated people of India. So you can say that Swami Vivekananda also played a big role. And Swami Shivananda also played a big role in this, because if you take any of the modern yoga school, most of the yoga school, you could trace that back to Swami Shivananda. So, and then you can see Swami Chinmayananda's disciple was Swami Dayananda Saraswati, who was one of the most proponent or one of the greatest master of the modern times. So this Acharya Upasana is also important. So 6 disciplines or the spiritual accessories we talked about. One is the Tvam-pada Viveka, understanding what is the nature of I, right? And the nature of the I is, it's not the reflecting medium. It is the reflected consciousness when it aligns with the original consciousness. That is the real meaning of I. For the reflected consciousness to get aligned with the original consciousness, the reflecting medium has to be pure and it has to be stable. Then we saw the example of those 2 birds, which is very famous. And then the second topic was Satyam. Satyam is level at the absolute level, at the relative level. Another popular verse is Satyameva Jayate. And the practice of Satyam at the empirical level is absolute must-have for the absolute level. Sorry, the empirical level, following empirical level is definitely going to help me to guide me to the right path towards the absolute level. So that is Satyam. And then we talked about Tapas. Tapas is the integrated effort. The body, mind, senses, and the intellect, when it works together for a higher cause, that becomes Tapas. Manaishchaiva Indriyaischa Aikagrim Manaha. So the union, when they work together, this is Shankaracharya's definition, brilliant definition. Then we talked about Brahmacharyam, controlling your sense organs, disciplining your sense organs so that I can follow the path of Brahman. Then we talked about the Acharya Upasana. So these are the 6 disciplines, spiritual disciplines. And if you ask me, sorry, 5, did I miss one? Okay.
Sukshma Buddhi.
Yeah, Sukshma Buddhi. Sukshma Buddhi is there, sharp intellect. Because intellectual understanding is also important here. It cannot be blindly taken. So these are the 6 spiritual accessories the Upanishad advises to do. And now, what are all the important verses so far we covered? I'll just show you. We don't need to do a detailed analysis of the verses, but there are 2 mantras, I would say. First mantra is the 6th mantra, which is Satyameva Jayate. That is very famous mantra. This mantra is very popular. It tells Satyameva Jayate na nirtam satyena pantha vitato devayana yena kramanti rishayo haptakama yatra tat satyasya paramam nidhanam. It tells truth always triumphs. Truth is always victorious. The untruth or falsehood will never win. Devayana Marga, the path towards good, is always widened because of truth. So if you follow the truth, that path becomes widened and you will have a smooth ride. And through that path, the sages walks and they will reach the absolute truth. This is what brilliantly said. This is the most popular mantra of the this particular topics in the third Mundaka Prathama Khanda. And another thing is the two birds example. That is the first mantra. The first mantra talks about the two word example. It tells Da Suparna Sayujas Sakhaya Samanam Vriksham Parishas Sujate Tayoranya Pippalam Swadya Atyanda Nasnato Apichakashiti. So there are two birds. It stays in one tree. One is addicted to the fruits and get suffered and enjoyed because of the types of fruits it gets. The other bird goes beyond that. It is not affected by anything. So this is the two mantras. That concludes the topic today. So again, this is the summary. Tvam pradhana, satyam, tapa, brahmacharyam, sukshma buddhi, and acharya upasana. Beautiful. So we'll do the closing prayer and then we can have some 10 minutes Q&A. Bhunaji, if you don't mind, you can do the closing prayer.
Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavaseshyate. Om Shantis Shantis Shantihi. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo